Oklahoma and Texas both produce a lot of oil. Can you tell the folks back home why are we paying so darn much at the pump these days?
You want to start that and I'll clean up?
Sure.
Yeah.
Look, we're seeing inflation skyrocketing across the country, but at no place is it more brutal than at the gas pump. And the thing to understand, this is not an accident. It's not an unintended side effect. This is the deliberate result of promises that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi made. Joe Biden, when he was campaigning for president, said that he was going to shut down drilling on federal lands. He was going to shut it off and end drilling. And he's worked hard to deliver on those promises. That's one of the very few promises that he's worked hard to deliver on. And you look at, in the opening days of the administration, first day in office, Biden shut down the Keystone Pipeline, killed 11,000 jobs, 8,000 union jobs with the stroke of a pen. Few days later, Biden shut down all new leases on federal lands, both onshore and offshore. Together they comprise 25% of oil and gas production in the country. He shut down all new leases. A few days after that, he shut down development in ANWR, the incredibly petroleum-rich, very small section of Alaska, shut it down. We've seen oil and gas production in the United States drop and stay consistently low. We are producing 1.5 million barrels a day less of oil today than we did at the peak under the Trump administration, and that's what Biden promised to do. And the effect is gas prices are going up and up and up and up. And you know, we're right now seeing the first land war in Europe since World War II. And I got to say, the Biden White House, when it comes to inflation, they've had no less than 5 different explanations for inflation. Their first explanation, they said it isn't happening. It's not real. No credible economist would tell you it was happening. Well, the problem is that was false. Explanation number 2, they said, well, it's happening, but it's transitory. It's just going to be here a minute, then it's going to go away. Well, that didn't hold water either. Explanation number 3, the White House Chief of Staff said it's a high-class problem. It's happening, it's not transitory, but it's high-class. I don't know what that means, but apparently you're in really good shape if you're feeling the pain of inflation. Explanation number 4 was it's happening, it's not transitory, it's not high-class, but it's a good thing. It's a sign of just how good the economy is, that prices are skyrocketing. And then explanation number 5 that every Democrat is repeating is Putin, Putin, Putin. They want to blame it all on Vladimir Putin. When Joe Biden took the oath of office, the average gas price in the United States was $2.38 a gallon. Now it is $4.16 a gallon. And to be clear, gas had risen 50% before Russia invaded Ukraine. This is a result of their policies that are killing jobs and hurting consumers here in Oklahoma.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on that. This has been the fight on this, is that the gas prices went up $1 before the war in Ukraine ever started. And they continue to be able to say this is all Vladimir Putin's fault when everyone has felt this for an entire year. This was a very deliberate plan. This is like the issue on the border. It's not an accident that we have 1 million people crossing the border. They changed the policies in place that actually facilitated that. They changed policies that actually facilitated an increase in prices, and they were clear early on. They want people to move to electric vehicles. They want people to move to other types of transportation, and the way to do that was to raise prices on gasoline. What they didn't expect is how hard the American people are pushing back and saying, hey, it's $100 to fill up my truck now. Yep. I don't like this. And so now they're trying to find some way to be able to gimmick it out. This week, it is we're going to do more ethanol. Last week, it was we're going to open the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. It seems to be everything but we're going to produce more oil and gas in America to be able to increase the supply. The amazing thing about this is if you go into Biden's actual numbers that his administration has put out, they predict over the next 30 years, we're going to have an increasing demand worldwide for oil, gas, coal. The Biden administration's own numbers. So they see the issue, but they see the issue as say we need more, but we're not going to do it in America. We're going to buy it more internationally. It's the biggest issue on the Keystone Pipeline that people don't talk about. The Keystone Pipeline decision, everyone says is about a pipeline. It wasn't. It was about the source of energy, of where we're going to get it, from America or somewhere else. The amount that we buy from Russia is almost exactly the amount that we were going to get from the Keystone Pipeline. And in the first week of the Biden administration, to get heavy crude, which is what we get from Russia, we could either get it from Canada, we could get it from the Gulf Coast of the United States, off our offshore drilling, or we could get it from Russia. In the first week of the Biden administration, he said, we're not going to get it from Canada. He shut down drilling in the Gulf Coast and said, we're going to get it from Russia. And now we're all suffering the consequences of that bad foreign policy decision.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? Because my understanding is the Biden administration sees all these oil leases on federally owned lands that are sitting there idle and saying, guys, either pump the oil or start paying us some money or give up those leases. It seems like they're trying to get the oil companies to step up. What can the president actually do to force oil companies to drill more? They're not drilling.
Listen, I got to say, you and I don't know each other, but
We've talked before, but go ahead.
But you seem like far too intelligent a man to buy that nonsense. I mean, it really is a ridiculous argument. Biden promised, I'm going to shut down oil and gas drilling. He didn't hide it. He told the voters, if you elect me, that's what I'm going to do. And it is relentless. Literally every week they put another policy in place, another policy in place. Just a few weeks ago, the SEC put in place a new rule to dry up equity financing for oil and gas drilling so that you can invest in it. Biden has nominated banking regulators to dry up, to cut off debt financing so you can't engage in new drilling. And so their ridiculous lie, they say, well, there are a bunch of permits. You know what? Having a permit doesn't mean you can drill. You got to be able to build a pipeline to take what you drill and get it to market. They won't let you build a pipeline. You got to get through all of the other processes, and you got to also have the capital. Biden is cutting off the capital for drilling and then saying, gosh, you guys won't drill. And the reason I say you're too bright to follow that,
Which is actually true for him.
is, listen, they're arguing these mean, greedy oil companies don't want any oil. You got gasoline, you got oil prices at historic highs, and they don't want any. That is truly absurd. And if they're arguing this is somehow good for them, why were we producing 13 million barrels a day of oil under the Trump administration, and why are we producing only 11.5 million today? This is the result of the commitments that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made to the Green New Deal radicals, and they're trying to find a bad guy. And so their two favorite bad guys right now are Putin or the mean oil companies. Look, oil companies, like any other business, like to make money, and right now their product is really expensive, which means if they could drill for more oil, they would. They're not doing it because this administration is using the full force of the federal government to cut off their cash to make it impossible, and the risk of doing so. I talk to producers all the time in Texas who are afraid to put more capital into drilling because this administration is trying to do everything they can to drive them out of business, and then for them to stand there and gaslight everyone and saying, gosh, we want you to drill. I'd be happy to have 1 week pass without the Biden administration announcing a new rule designed to shut down oil and gas drilling in the United States. I can't think of a week in a long time where that hadn't happened.
Yeah, and I would only say, they keep saying 9,000 permits are out there, they're not using that. They know full well that when you go in and get a permit, you get one section of it. There's a whole other section that you're not getting because you're going to go in and test that. You're going to test the geology. If you actually figure out it works, then you want to lease everything else around it. You're not going to send a bunch of capital into one little section. You want to be able to get the whole thing. And so they know, they can say there's 9,000 out there. Why aren't you doing that? They know the deal. They're fully aware that companies are, if they can't get any of the stuff around them, are not going to start drilling in that area. Or if they do start drilling on the day that it opens up and they prove this is successful, somebody else as a competitor is going to get the one next to them on it. So again, there are common sense reasons that are out there that really are very pragmatic. But as Ted was saying on it, just last week, the Biden administration was saying oil companies need to drill more, and in his budget, he released a budget with 15 new taxes on oil and gas production. 15 new taxes were proposed by the Biden administration the same week he said drill more. So it is say one thing and do another constantly.